Okay, so hello out there in YouTube land. Today, the Monday Book Club is continuing our reading of Alice in Wonderland, and we will begin our reading today on chapter 8. And the title of chapter 8 is, let me get back to it, um, The Queen's Croquet Ground. So with that being said, I will invite Katrina to begin the reading.
Chapter 8, The Queen's Croquet Ground. Excuse me. A large rose tree stood near the entrance of the garden. The roses growing on it were white, but there were three gardeners at it, busily painting them red. Alice thought this a very curious thing, and she went nearer to watch them. And just as she came up to them, she heard one of them say, "Look out now, Five, don't go splashing paint over me like that." "I couldn't help it," said Five in a sulky tone. "Seven jogged my elbow." On which Seven looked up and said, "That's right, Five. Always lay the blame on others." "You'd better not talk," said Five. "I heard the Queen said only yesterday you deserve to be beheaded." "What for?" said the one who had spoken first. "That's none of your business, too," said Seven. "Yes, it is his business," said Five, "and I'll tell him it was for bringing the cook tulip roots instead of onions." Seven flung down his brush and had just begun, well, of all the unjust things, when his eyes chanced to fall upon Alice as she stood watching them, and he checked himself suddenly. The others looked around also, and all of them bowed low. "Would you tell me," said Alice, a little timidly, "why you are painting those roses?" Five and Seven said nothing, but looked at Two. Two began in a low voice, "Why, the fact is, you see, miss, this here ought to have been a red rose tree, and we put a white one in by mistake, and if the Queen was to find out, we would all have our heads cut off, you know. So you see, miss, we're doing our best afore she comes to." At this moment, Five, who had been anxiously looking across the garden, called out, "The Queen, the Queen!" And the three gardeners instantly threw themselves flat upon their faces. There was a sound of many footsteps, and Alice looked round, eager to see the Queen. Duncan.
First came 10 soldiers carrying clubs. These were all shaped like the three gardeners, oblong and flat, with their hands and feet at the corner. Next, the 10 courtiers. These were ornamented all over with diamonds and walked two and two as the soldiers did. After these came the royal children. There were 10 of them. And the little dares came jumping merrily along, hand in hand in couples. They were all ornamented with hearts. Next came the guests, mostly kings and queens, and among them Alice recognized the white rabbit. He was talking in a hurried, nervous manner, smiling at everything that was said, and went by without noticing her. Then followed the Knave of Hearts, carrying the king's crown on a crimson velvet cushion. And last of all, this grand procession came, the King and the Queen of Hearts. Alice was rather doubtful whether she ought not to lie down in her face like the three gardeners, but she couldn't remember ever having heard of such a rule of processions. And besides, what would be the use of a procession, thought she, if people had to lie down on their faces so that they couldn't see it? So she stood where she was and waited. When the procession came opposite to Alice, they all stopped and looked at her. And the queen said severely, "Who is this?" And she said it to the Knave of Hearts, who only bowed and smiled in reply. "Idiot," said the queen, tossing her head impatiently, and turning to Alice, she went on, "What is your name, child?" Anne.
Okay. Uh, My name is Alice. "So please, your majesty," said Alice very politely. But she added to herself, "Why, they are only a pack of cards after all. I needn't be afraid of them." And who are these? Said the Queen, pointing to the 3 gardeners who were lying round the rose tree. For you see, as they were lying on their faces and the pattern on their backs was the same as the rest of the pack, she could not tell her whether they were gardeners or soldiers or courtiers or 3 of her own children. How should I know? Said Alice, surprised at her own courage. It's no business of mine. The Queen turned crimson with fury, and after glaring at her for a moment like a wild beast, screamed, "Off with her head, off!" "Nonsense," said Alice very loudly and decidedly, and the Queen was silent. The King laid his hand upon her arm and timidly said, "Consider, my dear, she is only a child." The Queen turned angrily away from him and said to the knave, "Turn them over." The knave did so very carefully with one foot. "Get up," said the Queen in a shrill, loud voice, and the 3 gardeners instantly jumped up and began bowing to the King, the Queen, the royal children, and everybody else. "Leave off that," screamed the Queen. "You make me giddy." And then turning to the rose tree, she went on, "What have you been doing here?" "May it please your Majesty," said two in a very humble tone, going down on one knee as he spoke. "We were trying—" "I see," said the Queen, who had meanwhile been examining the roses. "Off with their heads!" And the procession moved on, 3 of the soldiers remaining behind to execute the unfortunate gardeners, who ran to Alice for protection. Tom.
"You shan't be beheaded," said Alice, and she put them into a large flower pot that stood near. The 3 soldiers wandered about for a minute or two, looking for them, and then quietly marched off after the others. "Are their heads off?" shouted the Queen. "Their heads are gone, if you please, your Majesty," the soldier shouted in reply. "That's right," shouted the Queen. "Can you play croquet?" The soldiers were silent and looked at Alice, as the question was evidently meant for her. "Yes," shouted Alice. "Come on then," roared the Queen, and Alice joined the procession, wondering very much what would happen next. It's a very fine day," said a timid voice at her side. She was walking by the white rabbit, who was peeping anxiously into her face. "Very," said Alice. "Where is the Duchess?" "Hush, hush," said the rabbit in a low, hurried tone. He looked anxiously over his shoulder as he spoke, and then raised himself up upon tiptoe, put his mouth close to her ear, and whispered, "She's under sentence of execution." "What for?" said Alice. "Did you say what a pity?" the rabbit asked. "No, I didn't," said Alice. "I don't think it's at all a pity. I said, what for?" "She boxed the Queen's ears," the rabbit began. Alice gave a little scream of laughter. "Oh, hush," the rabbit whispered in a frightened tone. "The Queen will hear you. You see, she came rather late, and the Queen said—" "Get to your places," shouted the Queen in a voice of thunder, and people began running about in all directions, tumbling up against each other. However, they got settled down in a minute or two, and the game began. Alice thought she'd never seen such a curious croquet ground in her life. It was all ridges and furrows. The croquet balls were live hedgehogs, and the mallets live flamingos, and the soldiers had to double themselves up and stand on their hands and feet to make the arches. Des?
The chief difficulty Alice found at first was in managing her flamingo. She succeeded in getting its body tucked away comfortably enough under her arm, with its legs hanging down. But generally, just as she had got its neck nicely straightened out and was going to give the hedgehog a blow with its head, it would twist itself around and look up in her face with such a puzzled expression that she could not help bursting out laughing. And when she had got its head down and was going to begin again, it was very provoking to find that the hedgehog had unrolled itself and was in the act of crawling away. Besides all this, there was generally a ridge or furrow in the way wherever she wanted to send the hedgehog to. And as the doubled up soldiers were always getting up and walking off in other parts of the ground, Alice soon came to the conclusion that it was a very difficult game indeed. The players all played at once, without waiting for turns, quarrelling all the while and fighting for the hedgehogs. And in a very short time the queen was in a furious passion, and went stamping about and shouting, "Off with his head," or "Off with her head," about once in a minute. Alice began to feel very uneasy, to be sure. She had not, as yet, had any dispute with the queen, but she knew that it might happen any minute. And then she thought, what would become of me? They're dreadfully fond of beheading people here. The great wonder is that there's anyone left alive. Orla.
She was looking about for some way of escape and wondering whether she could get away without being seen when she noticed a curious appearance in the air. It puzzled her very much at first, but after watching it a minute or two, she made it out to be a grin, and she said to herself, "It's the Cheshire Cat. Now I shall have somebody to talk to." "How are you getting on?" said the cat, as soon as there was mouth enough for it to speak with. Alice waited till the eyes appeared, and then nodded. "It's no use speaking to it," she thought, "till its ears have come, or at least one of them." In another minute the whole head appeared, and then Alice put down her flamingo and began an account of the game, feeling very glad she had someone to listen to her. The cat seemed to think that there was enough of it now in sight, and no more of it appeared. "I don't think they play at all fairly," Alice began in rather a complaining tone. "And they all quarrel so dreadfully one can't hear oneself speak. And they don't seem to have any rules in particular. At least if there are, nobody attends to them. And you have no idea how confusing it is, all the things being alive. For instance, there's the arch I've got to go through next, walking about at the other end of the ground. And I should have croqueted the Queen's hedgehog just now, only it ran away when it saw mine coming." "How do you like the Queen?" said the cat in a low voice. "Not at all," said Alice. "She's so extremely—" Just then she noticed that the Queen was close behind her, listening. So she went on, "Likely to win, that it's hardly worthwhile finishing the game. Next, please."
The queen smiled and passed on. "Who are you talking to?" said the king, going up to Alice and looking at the cat's head with great curiosity. "It's a friend of mine, a Cheshire cat," said Alice. "Allow me to introduce it." "Oh, I don't like the look of it at all," said the king. "However, it may kiss my hand if it likes." "I'd rather not," the cat remarked. "Don't be impertinent," said the king, "and don't look at me like that." He got behind Alice as he spoke. "A cat may look at a king," said Alice. "I've read that in some books, but I don't remember where." "Well, it must be removed," said the king very decidedly, and he called the queen, who was passing at the moment. "My dear, I wish you would have that cat removed." The queen had only one way of settling all difficulties, great or small. "Off with his head," she said, without even looking around. "I'll fetch the executioner myself," said the king eagerly, and he hurried off. Alice thought she might as well go back and see how the game was going on, as she heard the queen's voice in the distance, screaming with passion. She had already heard her sentence 3 of the players to be executed for having missed their turns, and she did not like the look of things at all, as the game was in such confusion that she never knew whether it was her turn or not. So she went in searching of her hedgehog. The hedgehog was engaged in a fight with another hedgehog, which seemed to Alice an excellent opportunity for croqueting one of them with the other. The only difficulty was that her flamingo was gone across to the other side of the garden, where Alice could see it trying in a helpless sort of way to fly up into a tree. By the time she had caught the flamingo and brought it back, the fight was over and both hedgehogs were out of sight. "But it doesn't matter much," thought Alice, "as all the arches are gone from this side of the ground." So she tucked it away under her arm that it might not escape again, and went back for a little more conversation with her friend. Duncan, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And I got off to such a good start. When she got back to the Cheshire Cat, she was surprised to find quite a large crowd had collected around it. There was a dispute going on between the executioner, the king, and the queen, who were all talking at once, while all the rest were quite silent and looked very uncomfortable. The moment Alice appeared, she was appealed to by all three to settle the question. And they repeated their arguments to her, though, as I all spoke at once, and she found it very hard to find out exactly what they said. The executioner's argument was that you couldn't cut off a head unless there was a body to cut it off from, that he had never to do such a thing before, and he wasn't going to begin at this time of life. The king's argument was that anything that had a head could be beheaded and that you weren't to talk nonsense. The queen's argument was that if something wasn't done about it in less than no time, she'd have everyone executed all round. This was the last remark that had made the whole party look so grave and anxious. Alice could think of nothing else to say but, "It belongs to the Duchess. You'd better ask her about it." "She's in prison," the queen said to the executioner. "Fetch her here." And the executioner went off like an arrow. Next.
Okay, the cat's head began fading away the moment he was gone. And by the time he had come back with the Duchess, it had entirely disappeared. So the king and the executioner ran wildly up and down looking for it, while the rest of the party went back to the game. Will I continue? Chapter 9?
Maybe we should talk a little bit about this and then you will continue with chapter 9. How about that?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. This seems entirely contemporary to me.
Mad.
Yeah.
Arbitrary rules, arbitrary punishments, everyone kowtowing to the queen.
Yeah.
Mm.
And many of the characters being two-dimensional.
Mm.
The fact that they're playing cards, in the
Mhm.
pictures I have here, they're playing cards, and I mean, what's she, the Queen of Diamonds?
Mm.
Yeah.
No, the King and Queen of Hearts. But the courtiers have diamonds, and I don't know what the soldiers have. Because he was a mathematician. Was he playing with cards? Do they use cards to?
They use cards. I'm not sure, but I would think they would have used cards even in Lewis Carroll's day for probability to illustrate probability.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for the fun of it, let me read a note that has to do with, I think they're painting the roses. Says Bruce Bevan wrote to say that Carroll may have had in mind here an incident described in the chapter on tulip mania in Charles Mackay's work, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. An English traveler in Holland, unaware of the high prices that were being paid for rare species of tulips, picked up a tulip root thinking it was an onion and began to peel it. As it happened, the root was worth 4,000 florins. Poor man was arrested and sent to prison until he found the means to pay this sum to the tulip root's owner.
Yeah.
Well, that's the only one that I agreed with the Queen, that he said should be taken off for giving tulip roots instead of onions. Mm. Do you
Yep.
think you can, from another point of view, you can see how if the person at the top is unstable and wants to chop everybody else, how it infiltrates all the ways down through society. Everybody is nervous.
Hmm.
Everybody's
Yeah.
everybody's afraid.
And thinking absurdly.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that's
Mhm. So let's see, why are they painting? Oh, yeah, they're painting the roses because
it should have been red instead of
it would have
white.
been red, but they planted white ones, so then they were
Hmm.
gonna basically put up a facade.
Mm.
And I think even the fact that when the Queen was coming, that their technique was to try to hide, to
Mm.
stay out of the Queen's consciousness. Has anybody seen the movie The King of Hearts?
No.
Long
No,
time ago.
long time ago. Well, let me just say, if you're a movie fan, write down the name, The King of Hearts, Alan Bates, as a young man. He's a young man in this movie. And it is very much in the spirit of Lewis Carroll. And lots of fun. When I was a student, which was a mighty long time ago, it was wildly admired among uh, college students who indulged in such things.
Is it about gambling?
Excuse me?
Is it about gambling?
No, no. I will tell you briefly that it's a World War II movie, and Alan Bates is a Scot soldier um, in charge of messenger pigeons. And the Allied troops are approaching a French town controlled by the Germans. And the Germans know they are coming. And the Germans set up a bomb to go off when the Allied troops come into the town. And all the townspeople, the regular normal quote, normal townspeople, um, know what's going on, and they leave the town also, and they unlock the gate to the madhouse. And the insane people discover that the gate is open and the town is abandoned. Anyway, that's as much as you need to know. I will have to say that you just have to see it if you have a sense of the absurd and you like movies. It's a must see. King of Hearts, Alan Bates. Probably around 1964, 65. Yeah. Let's see what else is in this chapter that we.
The Queen doesn't seem to notice that the roses are white after all that. Or she
Well,
notices she doesn't care.
uh, the Queen is very much like someone of prominence right now who only cares if something enters his mind. But whatever's in his mind can be quickly replaced by the next event. So I think that the cards that were painting the roses realized that, and that's why they fell down on the ground, hoping not to be noticed,
Mm.
so that some other event would take place and they would not be brought into the consciousness of the queen. And that's, I mean, I will say it's very contemporary,
Mm.
and I will be bold enough to say that, we have peace in Israel right now because a certain party wanted to get the Nobel Prize and thought that if he brought about peace days before the Nobel Prize was awarded, that he would get the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, that didn't happen. So it'll be interesting to see how the accidental peace plays out.
Mm.
Does the War of the Roses come into it? I've just been looking up York and Lancaster, because the White Rose is York and the Red Rose is Lancaster. And I'm sure we're going to get to it in Shakespeare at some point. And has this played out in British history as a, if you have a white rose, does it mean something? And a red rose, does it mean something else? Because if she's a queen and a red rose queen,
I think you're making a very good point. I do not have any notes to that effect.
I'm not sure, but I think the English rugby team might have a rose, or maybe they have a cross. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a rose, or yeah.
It might be worth a Google search, putting in Alice in Wonderland, red and white roses, and history. I think your point is a good one, but I just don't know.
It's just that the queen wants red roses, and they accidentally planted white roses.
Yeah. She told them to plant red roses, and they planted white ones. You're correct.
This Alice in Wonderland, it was published in 1865. So presumably he's been writing it for a while, but it was during the American Civil War. So there might be some connection there.
Hey, there's Joan Levy. She
Yeah.
suddenly appeared.
I know I had some things I needed to take care of. I'm sorry to be late.
Not a problem at all. And I was just all of a sudden I looked and said something's different here.
You sneaked in.
Well, we have just completed the reading of the Queen and the Croquet game.
Oh, you finished that chapter?
Finished that chapter, and we're just kind of going over a few notes. And
Yeah.
Orla was just wondering. I don't know if you were here when Orla brought up the wonderment of, did the red and white roses have anything to do with the War of the Roses?
No, I missed that, and there's no note of it in the notes.
In
of
the
the slide.
annotated notes, right?
Yeah.
In my AI overview, in Alice in Wonderland, roses symbolize a political satire, the English Wars of the Roses.
Although I would want some confirmation of that.
Yeah, well,
Anybody's getting notorious for making stuff up.
okay, here they go. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland Wikipedia. According to Wilfred Scott Giles, the rose motif in Alice alludes to, and it's something to do with politics, and the up with the heads is something to do with civil war. So it might be America as well.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, there you go. There's the Civil War and there's the War of the Roses.
And
And I would just bring up another thing. I think as I read Alice in Wonderland, I think it exonerates him from um, unconscious pedophilia, which is a charge leveled at Lewis Carroll pretty regularly. But I personally find it very difficult to believe that anybody with such an absurd sense of humor
Could be a pedophile.
would be a pedophile. I don't ask me why it exonerates him. I can't come up with a logical reason why that would exonerate him, but in my mind, it exonerates him. And you know, he was just a goofball.
Was he ever confirmed as a pedophile?
No.
He was okay. So here's the stories on it. I did go into it because you know they have a Lewis Carroll thing in Finnegan's Wake, where without much imagination, you can hear Joyce accusing him of pedophilia. So I went and I looked at it, and of course, there's no doubt Lewis Carroll liked to take photographs of naked little girls. That part, and there's some very salacious photographs that he took of what was her first name? Her name was not Alice, but Little, I think was her last name.
Oh,
So that's one. I mean,
I
he
think it
really
was Alice.
yeah, it was Alice. It's Alice Little.
Mm.
Alice Little. Okay, so I mean, and these photographs are available, and they're very provocative. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is he got kicked out of the Little's house because he proposed that he and Alice get married when she became 11 years old or something like that. This is, I do believe that I read this with my own eyes from a legitimate source. So those are the so-called evidence that he may have been a pedophile. But I just, for some reason, cannot believe that anybody with such an absurd sense of humor would go that route. Alrighty. Since no one, oh, I like the argument. I'll just say briefly, I really like the argument about whether or not the Cheshire Cat's head should be cut off.
No, it's a cat.
Huh?
Sorry, just the phrase she used, she said she found in a book, a cat can look at a king. Is that a phrase from a book or is it original
No, that's a phrase from a book.
from a book?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I do have a note. Maybe one of the others of you are looking at the annotated and can. Um, um, let's see. Nobody else found it? Oh, okay. Here we go. We're getting close. We're getting close. So the executioner's argument was that he couldn't cut off a head unless there was a body to cut it off from. and that he had never done such a thing before, and he wasn't going to begin at this time of life. I think that's a good argument. That's a solid argument. And the king's argument was that if there was a head, it could be beheaded. Anything that had a head could be beheaded.
I found a note here on the pedophilia.
Okay.
It says Ellen Carey was Carroll's principal hobby, the hobby that aroused his greatest joys, was entertaining little girls. I am fond of children except boys, he once wrote. He professed a horror of little boys and in later life avoided them as much as possible. Adopting the Roman symbol for a day of good fortune, he would write in his diary, "I mark this day with a white stone," whenever he felt it to be specially memorable. He thought the naked bodies of little girls, unlike the bodies of boys, extremely beautiful. Upon occasion, he sketched or photographed them in the nude, with the mother's permission, of course. If I had the loveliest child in the world to draw or photograph, he wrote, and found she had a modest shrinking, however slight, and however easily overcome from being taken nude, I should feel it was a solemn duty owed to God to drop the request altogether. Thus, these undraped pictures later embarrassed the girls. He requested that after his death they be destroyed and returned to the children or their parents. None seem to have survived.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think you can actually find some of those photographs. And I think on the internet, I mean, there actually are nude photos of Alice Little taken by Lewis Carroll.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. This.
Well, I made my Finnegan's Wake group very nervous because I found the photos and I posted them on Facebook, and some of the members were convinced that Facebook was going to kick us off of Facebook. But it didn't happen. And I know that I saw something about the what was the question? I can't remember anyway, there was a reference to an earlier example of a quote that Alice gave. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Shall we go to the next chapter?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll read a page or two.
Okay, and we need to get Joan in the list.
I'm on the list.
Are you in the list?
Yes. I added her.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. Okay.
Thank you, Sue.
The Mock Turtle Story. You can't think how glad I am to see you again, you dear old thing, said the Duchess, as she tucked her arm affectionately into Alice's, and they walked off together. Alice was very glad to find her in such a pleasant temper, and thought to herself that perhaps it was only the pepper that had made her so savage when they met in the kitchen. When I'm a duchess, she said to herself, not in a very hopeful tone though, I won't have any pepper in my kitchen at all. Soup does very well without. Maybe it's always pepper that makes people hot-tempered, she went on, very much pleased at having found out a new kind of rule, and vinegar that makes them sour, and chamomile that makes them bitter, and barley sugar and such things that make children sweet-tempered. I only wish people knew that. Then they wouldn't be so stingy about it, you know. Next, Tom.
He had quite forgotten the Duchess by this time and was a little startled when she heard her voice close to her ear. You're thinking about something, my dear, and that makes you forget to talk. I can't tell you just now what the moral of that is, but I shall remember it in a bit. Perhaps it hasn't one, Alice ventured to remark. Tut tut, child, said the Duchess. Everything's got a moral, if only you can find it. And she squeezed herself up closer to Alice's side as she spoke. Alice did not much like her keeping so close to her, first because the Duchess was very ugly, and secondly because she was exactly the right height to rest her chin on Alice's shoulder, and it was an uncomfortably sharp chin. However, she did not like to be rude, so she bore it as well as she could. The game's going on rather better now, she said, by way of keeping up the conversation a little. "'Tis so," said the Duchess, "and the moral of that is, oh, 'tis love that makes the world go round." Somebody said, Alice whispered, that it's done by everybody minding their own business. Ah, well, it means much the same thing, said the Duchess, digging her sharp little chin into Alice's shoulder as she added, and the moral of that is, take care of the sense and the sounds will take care of themselves. How fond she is of finding morals in things, Alice thought to herself. I dare say you're wondering why I don't put my arm around your waist, the Duchess said after a pause. The reason is that I'm doubtful about the temper of your flamingo. Shall I try the experiment? He might bite, Alice cautiously replied, not feeling at all anxious to have the experiment tried. Very true, said the Duchess. Flamingos and mustard both bite, and the moral of that is, birds of a feather flock together. Only mustard isn't a bird, Alice remarked. Right as usual, said the Duchess. What a clear way you have of putting things. Des?
It's a mineral, I think, said Alice. Of course it is, said the Duchess, who seemed ready to agree to everything that Alice said. There's a large mustard mine near here, and the moral of that is, the more there is of mine, the less there is of yours. Oh, I know, exclaimed Alice, who had not attended to this last remark. It's a vegetable. It doesn't look like one, but it is. I quite agree with you, said the Duchess, and the moral of that is, be what you would seems to be. Or, if you like it put more simply, never imagine yourself not to be otherwise than what it might appear to others that what you were or might have been was not otherwise than what you had been would have appeared to them to be otherwise. I think I should understand that better, said Alice very politely, if I had it written down, but I can't quite follow it as you say it. That's nothing to what I could say if I chose, the Queen replied in a pleased tone. Pray don't trouble yourself to say it any longer than that, said Alice. Oh, don't talk about trouble, said the Duchess. I make you a present of everything I've said as yet. A cheap sort of presents, thought Alice. I'm glad people don't give birthday presents like that. But she did not venture to say it out loud. Thinking again, the Duchess asked, with another dig of her sharp little chin. I've a right to think, said Alice sharply, for she was beginning to feel a little worried. Just about as much right, said the Duchess, as pigs have to fly, but here, to Alice's great surprise, the Duchess's voice died away, even in the middle of her favourite word, moral, and the arm that was linked into hers began to tremble. Alice looked up, and there stood the Queen in front of them with her arms folded, frowning like a thunderstorm. Orla.
A fine day, Your Majesty, the Duchess began in a low, weak voice. Now I give you fair warning, shouted the Queen, stamping on the ground as she spoke. Either you or your head must be off. and that in about no time. Take your choice. The Duchess took her choice and was gone in a moment. Let's go on with the game, the Queen said to Alice, and Alice was too much frightened to say a word, but slowly followed her back to the croquet ground. The other guests had taken advantage of the Queen's absence and were resting in the shade. However, the moment they saw her, they hurried back to the game, the Queen merely remarking that a moment's delay would cost them their lives. All the time they were playing, the Queen never left off quarreling with the other players and shouting, "Off with his head!" or "Off with her head!" Those whom she sentenced were taken into custody by the soldiers, who of course had to leave off being archers to do this, so that by the end of half an hour or so, there were no archers left, and all the players except the King, the Queen, and Alice were in custody and under sentence of execution. Katrina.
I've just lost my place.
Oh,
Joan.
I think it's me anyhow.
Yeah, and I'll find my place. Okay.
Then the Queen left off quite out of breath and said to Alice, "Have you seen the Mock Turtle yet?" "No," said Alice. "I don't even know what a mock turtle is." "It's a thing mock turtle soup is made from," said the Queen. "I never saw one or heard of one," said Alice. "Come on then," said the Queen, and he shall tell you his history." As they walked off together, Alice heard the King say in a low voice to the company generally, "You are all pardoned." "Come, that's a good thing," she said to herself, for she had felt quite unhappy at the number of executions the Queen had ordered. They very soon came upon a griffin lying fast asleep in the sun. If you don't know what a griffin is, look at the picture. "Up, lazy thing," said the Queen, "and take this young lady to see the Mock Turtle, and to hear his history. I must go back and see after some executions I have ordered." And she walked off, leaving Alice alone with the griffin. I have a picture of the griffin if anybody does not have it.
Mm.
You want to see it?
Sure.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Katrina?
Okay. So, leaving Alice alone with the griffin. Is that where we are?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Alice did not quite like the look of the creature, but on the whole, she thought it would be quite as safe to stay with it as to go after the savage queen, so she waited. The griffin sat up and rubbed its eyes. Then it watched the queen till she was out of sight, and then it chuckled. "What fun," said the griffin, half to itself and half to Alice. "What is that fun?" said Alice. Why, she," said the griffin. "It's all her fancy that they never execute nobody, you know. Come on." "Everybody says, 'Come on here,'" thought Alice as she went slowly after it. "I never was so ordered about in all my life, never." They had not gone far before they saw the Mock Turtle in the distance, sitting sad and lonely on a little ledge of a rock, and as they came nearer, Alice could hear him sighing as if his heart would break. She pitied him deeply. "What is his sorrow?" she asked the griffin, and the griffin answered very nearly in the same words as before, "It's all his fancy, that. He hasn't got no sorrow, you know. Come on." So they went up to the Mock Turtle, who looked at them with large eyes and full of tears, but said nothing. "This here young lady," said the griffin, "she wants for to know your history, she do." "I'll tell it her," said the Mock Turtle in a soft, deep, hollow tone. "Sit down, both of you, and don't speak a word until I've finished." So they sat down, and nobody spoke for some minutes. Alice thought to herself, "I don't see how he can ever finish if he doesn't begin." But she waited patiently. Duncan.
Once, said the Mock Turtle at last, with a deep sigh, I was a real turtle. These words were followed by a very long silence, broken only by an occasional exclamation from the Griffin, and the constant heavy sobbing of the Mock Turtle. Alice was very nearly getting up and saying, Thank you, sir, for your interesting story. But she couldn't help thinking there must be more to come, so she sat down and said nothing. When we were little, the Mock Turtle went on at last more calmly, though still sobbing a little now and then, we went to the school in the sea. The master was an old turtle. We used to call him Tortoise. Why did you call him Tortoise if he wasn't one? Alice asked. We called him Tortoise because he taught us. Tortoise taught us. What a bad joke that is, said the Mock Turtle angrily. Really, you are very dull. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for asking such a simple question, asked the Griffin. And then they both sat silent and looked at poor Alice, who felt ready to sink into the earth. At last the Griffin said to the Mock Turtle, Drive on, old fella. Don't be all day about it. And he went on in these words. Next.
Okay. Yes, we went to school in the sea, though you mayn't believe it. Never said I didn't, interrupted Alice. You did, said the Mock Turtle. Hold your tongue, added the Griffin, before Alice could speak again. The Mock Turtle went on. We had the best of educations, in fact. We went to school every day. I've been to a day school too, said Alice. You needn't be so proud as all that. With extras, asked the Mock Turtle a little anxiously. Yes, said Alice. We learned French and music. And washing, said the Mock Turtle. Certainly not, said Alice indignantly. Ah, then yours wasn't a really good school, said the Mock Turtle in a tone of great relief. Now, at ours, they had, at the end of the bill, French, music, and washing extra. I couldn't have wanted it most, said Alice, living in the bottom of the sea. I couldn't afford to learn it, said the Mock Turtle with a sigh. I only took the regular course. And what was that? Inquired Alice. Reeling and withering, of course, to begin with, the Mock Turtle replied, and then the different branches of arithmetic, ambition, distraction, uglification, and derision. Never heard of uglification, Alice ventured to say. What is that? The Griffin lifted up both his paws in surprise. Never heard of uglifying, it exclaimed. You know what to beautify is, I suppose. Yes, said Alice doubtfully. It means to make anything prettier. Well, then, the Griffin went on, if you don't know what to uglify is, you are a simpleton. Tom.
Alice did not feel encouraged to ask any more questions about it, so she turned to the Mock Turtle and said, What else had you to learn? Well, there was mystery, said the Mock Turtle. The Mock Turtle replied, counting off the subjects on his flappers. Mystery, ancient and modern, with geography, then drawling. Drawling master was an old conjureel that used to come once a week. He taught us drawling, stretching, and fainting in coils. What was that like? Said Alice. Well, I can't show it you myself, said the Mock Turtle. The Mock Turtle said, I'm too stiff, and the Griffin never learnt it. Hadn't time, said the Griffin. I went to the classical master, though he was an old crab, he was. I never went to him, said the Mock Turtle said with a sigh. He taught laughing and grief, they used to say. So he did, said the Griffin, sighing in his turn, and both creatures hid their faces in their paws. And how many hours a day did you do lessons? Said Alice, in a hurry to change the subject. 10 hours the first day, said the Mock Turtle, 9 the next, and so on. What a curious plan, exclaimed Alice. That's the reason they're called lessons, the Griffin remarked, because they lesson from day to day. This was quite a new idea to Alice, and she thought it over a little before she made her next remark. Then the 11th day must have been a holiday. Of course it was, said the Mock Turtle. And how did you manage on the 12th? Alice went on eagerly. That's enough about lessons, the Gryphon interrupted in a very decided tone. Tell her something about the games now.
He really gets
It's
into,
very
he really gets into some terrible puns on this
Yeah, yeah. He's just getting into his stride there, kind of.
one. Yeah. Just,
very, very funny.
Yeah.
I'm very struck by the fact that he has made Alice quite impudent
Yeah.
for a little girl. I mean, he has her contradicting her elders and her
Mm.
superiors and talking back to them on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I like the way he always has her talking to herself. She reflects on the answers and what she's going to say or what she said or
Uh-huh,
something.
uh-huh.
It's really good kind of um, a device to use as well. You hear her thinking to herself, and
Mm-hmm.
Well, she seems to see things as kind of a mystery that's unknown to her, but at the same time, she doesn't seem, um, what's the word I want? She doesn't not believe it.
no, she just accepts them as they are, as they come along, and responds to them. Yeah, she's.
Yeah, well, she has
I
been.
suppose
She,
the,
yeah.
the, the word is curious. I suppose. Yeah, but anyway.
Well, remember right in the very beginning of the book, though, she has this experience of becoming really tiny
Yeah,
and then very tall,
yeah.
and then trying to figure out what size she wants to be. And
Mm,
so she's already been through,
yeah,
you're either going to, through those experiences, you're either going to lose your mind or you're going
yeah,
to become rather flexible.
yeah.
And I like the Duchess with all of her morals.
Yeah.
Of course, which are all nonsense.
How old is Alice supposed to be? Was that mentioned? How old she is? Because I think little children, because they haven't had every experience, would accept what they see as real and part of
Mm.
the thing.
Hmm.
Mm.
I think she was a little beyond that in age, but I don't know that it said how old she was.
Good question. And I bet there's an answer to it. I'm gonna just say she's about 9.
Then she's in an age
Only
of,
because nine is a really nice age, generally speaking. But according to Search Assist, she's widely assumed to be 7 years old.
oh,
And she states that she's 7.5 in the sequel.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That's still
When I,
good.
when I was so when I was reading the bit about the Duchess and her morals, I was reminded of Donald Rumsfeld, and
Oh,
this is Rumsfeld. It's almost exactly the same idea. Reports that say that something hasn't happened are always interesting to me because, as we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns.
ah,
That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. but there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know we don't know.
Mhm.
It's exactly the same thing, but the Duchess had
That sounds like something that Lewis Carroll would write himself.
exactly.
It's,
Yes,
it's, it's very like that sentence that you read, as you know, the one that keeps going on
yes,
and
yeah,
on. Yeah.
yeah.
Not the same meaning, but it's exactly the very same kind of,
Mm.
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't bring your chair.
And that moral is be what you would seem to be,
Yeah.
or if you'd like it put more simply,
Okay.
never imagine yourself not to be otherwise than what it might appear to others
Hmm.
that what you were or might have been was not otherwise than what you had been would have appeared to them to be otherwise.
Yeah.
They're really convoluted stuff here. Lewis Carroll, did he write anything other than for children?
He wrote books of logic, I think.
All right.
Yeah, he was primarily a mathematician and a logician.
Mm.
Come on, Nico.
I
Miko was
think,
all upset that I didn't bring his chair. He doesn't like to miss Monday book club.
oh, we're talking about El Gato, the cat. Does he join you in computer stuff other than for the like?
No, no, there's Monday book club.
Oh, okay. So he likes the talking.
I
I'm
don't
sure
know.
you don't.
Yeah, but I didn't bring it because I was late. Now he was fussing at me.
Ah, see, there
No,
you go.
always fine. You're funny.
Anyway, the punning in here, he just goes into a whole riff during the Griffin and the Mock Turtle section on puns.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Mock Turtle, this is unneeded trivia, but Mock Turtle is a turtle soup made with veal.
That must taste something like turtle.
I think that's the idea. Yeah.
I had a World War II cookbook,
Hmm.
and they had a mock goose pie,
Mhm.
but it was lentils, and it
Hmm.
was the plainest, most nothing to do with goose. You wouldn't have. It was like it. So most of the people I knew at the time were veggies, so it was very handy to be able to cook these sort of plain foods. But that's the nearest. I've never heard of mock turtle soup before, but I know mock goose pie is lentils.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's in Google here, mock turtle soup contains calf's head, calf's trotters, brains, and other organ meats to imitate the expensive original green turtle soup. Though ground beef is a common modern substitute, a thick, rich broth, herbs like thyme and bay leaf, and spices such as allspice and black pepper are also featured along with vegetables like onion, celery, green pepper. The soup may also include hard-boiled eggs, sherry, and sometimes ginger snaps for thickening and added flavor.
Uh-huh.
There's
Okay.
some concoction there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty imaginative for Lewis Carroll to create a creature called the mock turtle.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
And no wonder the mock turtle is sad,
Mm.
because it doesn't really exist. Once, said the mock turtle at last, with a deep sigh, I was a real turtle.
Now, the more we read of this, the more I get the idea that he was having a dig at people.
Mm.
You think he was a little satirical?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Okay, well, if that were true, there should be some sort of scholarly book on who he was digging at.
Societies, for one.
Oh, here, you want to hear another? It's just, okay. So this is a note. What the tortoise said to Achilles. This is an article that he published in Mind magazine. After explaining a disconcerting logical paradox to Achilles, the tortoise remarks, and would you mind as a personal favor, considering what a lot of instruction this colloquy of ours will provide for the logicians of the 19th century? Would you mind adopting a pun that my cousin, the mock turtle, will then make, and allowing yourself to be renamed Tautus, as of course a pun on tortoise? Achilles buries his face in his hands. Then, in low tones of despair, he counters with another pun. As you please, provided that you, for your part, will adopt a pun the mock turtle never made and allow yourself to be renamed Achilles.
Oh dear, oh dear.
That's a pretty terrible pun.
Oh God.
Where are you reading that, Duncan? Where is that from?
That is on it's a note attached to the thing that says, "Why do you call him tortoise if he wasn't one?"
Oh, okay.
Good.
And it's
Okay.
note 13.
Okay.
And then the answer is, we call him tortoise because he taught us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually what that note was attached to. He taught us. That's and that's I think the first of the really terrible puns. He's got some of, I think, earlier subtle stuff, but I mean here he's really doing dad jokes at this point.
Mhm.
And what's that other one? Oh God, the one about um with extra. We went to school. We did. There is that thing about reading, only it's reeding and writhing.
Yeah.
Surely I didn't lose that one. That was so terrible. It was good.
And fainting in coils. That's another one.
Fainting. Oh, yeah. Okay. So here is reeling and writhing.
Mhm.
I couldn't afford to learn it, said the Mock Turtle with a sigh. I only took the regular course. What was that? Inquired Alice. Reeling and writhing, of
Really.
course, to begin with. And then the different branches of arithmetic: ambition, distraction, uglification, and derision. I'm not sure what uglification is a pun on. You know, we
Ugly
got
from
we got distraction would be subtraction,
yeah,
and derision
uglifying.
would be division, and uglification, that must be multiplication.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think he's talking about the other lecturers?
Not the other what?
Lecturers. Didn't he teach at a college?
Yeah, he was Oxford, I think.
Because what's this American politician said about academics? The reason the fights are so bitter is because the stakes are so low.
Well, yes,
He
that's
died
true.
recently. He died recently.
Uh-huh.
You know who it is? Nixon in China sort of guy. What was his name?
Kissinger.
Yes, Kissinger.
Mm.
Kissinger said that about academia.
Okay, yeah.
You might be right. I think this is just a straight up series of very bad puns, though. Ambition, distraction, uglification, and derision. Although how he would ever expect a little girl of 7 years old to have any idea of this, I have no, you know, that would go, I think, right over the head of a 7-year-old. Hmm. Shall we go ahead and go into one more chapter before the end today?
Okay.
Yeah.
And who was the last reader?
I read last as Des to read.
Okay,
All right,
chapter
I will
10,
go. So the
Mm.
lobster quadrille.
Lobster Quadrille. The Mock Turtle sighed deeply and drew the back of one flipper across his eyes. He looked at Alice and tried to speak, but for a minute or two, sobs choked his voice. Same as if he had a bone in his throat, said the Gryphon, and it set to work shaking him and punching him on the back. At last, the Mock Turtle recovered his voice, and with tears running down his cheeks, he went on again. You may not have lived much under the sea. I haven't, said Alice. And perhaps you were never even introduced to a lobster. Alice began to say I once tasted, but checked herself hastily and said, no, never. So you can have no idea what a delightful thing a lobster quadrille is. No, indeed, said Alice. What sort of a dance is it? Said the Gryphon. You first form into a line along the seashore. 2 lines, cried the Mock Turtle. Seals, turtles, salmon, and so on. And then when you've cleared all the jellyfish out of the way, that generally takes some time, interrupted the Gryphon. You advance twice, each with a lobster as a partner, cried the Gryphon. Of course, the Mock Turtle said, advance twice, set to partners. Change lobsters and retire in the same order, continued the Gryphon. Then you know, the Turtle went on. You throw the lobsters, shouted the Gryphon with a bound into the air. As far as you can, out to sea, as far out to sea as you can. Swim after them, screamed the Gryphon. Turn a somersault in the sea, cried the Mock Turtle, capering wildly about. Change lobsters again, cried the Gryphon at the top of his voice. Back to land again, and that's the first figure, said the Mock Turtle, suddenly dropping his voice, and the two creatures who had been jumping about like mad things all this time sat down again very sadly and quietly and looked at Alice. Orla,
It must be a very pretty dance, said Alice timidly. Would you like to see a little of it? Said the Mock Turtle. Very much indeed, said Alice. Come, let's try the first figure, said the Mock Turtle to the Gryphon. We can do without lobsters, you know. Which shall sing? Oh, you sing, said the Gryphon. I've forgotten the words. So they began solemnly dancing round and round Alice, every now and then treading on her toes when they passed too close, and waving their forepaws to mark the time, while the Mock Turtle sang this very slowly and sadly. Will you walk a little faster? Said a whiting to the snail. There's a porpoise close behind it, and he's treading on my tail. See how eagerly the lobsters and all the turtles all advance. They are waiting on the shingle. Will you come and join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Go.
You can really have no notice how delightful it will be when they take us up and throw us with lobsters out to sea. But the snail replied, too far, and gave a look askance. Said he thanked the whiting kindly, but he would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not join the dance. What matters is how far we go, his scaly friend replied. There is another shore, you know, upon the other side. The further off from England, the nearer is to France. Then turn not pale, beloved snail, but come and join the dance. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? Katrina?
Thank you. It's a very interesting dance to watch, said Alice, feeling very glad that it was over at last. I do so like that curious song about the whiting. Oh, as to the whiting, said the Mock Turtle, you've seen them, of course. Yes, said Alice. I've often seen them at Din. She checked herself hastily. I don't know where Din is, said the Mock Turtle, but if you've seen them so often, of course, you know what they're like. I believe so, Alice replied thoughtfully. They have their tails in their mouths, and they're all over crumbs. You're wrong about the crumbs, said the Mock Turtle. Crumbs would have all washed off in the sea, but they have their tails in their mouths, and the reason is, here the Mock Turtle yawned and shut his eyes. Tell her about the reason and all that, he said to the Gryphon. The reason is, said the Gryphon, that they would go with lobsters to the dance, so they got thrown out to sea. So they had to fall a long way, so they got their tails fast in their mouths, so they couldn't get them out again. That's all. Thank you, said Alice. It's very interesting. I never knew so much about a whiting before. I can tell you more than that, if you like, said the Gryphon. Do you know why it's called a whiting? I never thought about it, said Alice. Why? It does boots and shoes, the Gryphon replied very solemnly. Alice was thoroughly puzzled. Does the boots and shoes, she repeated in a wondering tone. Why, what are your shoes done with? Said the Gryphon. I mean, what makes them so shiny? Alice looked down at them and considered a little before she gave her answer. They're done with blacking, I believe. Boots and shoes under the sea, the Gryphon went on in a deep voice, are done with whiting. Now you know. Duncan.
And what are they made of? Alice asked in a tone of great curiosity. Soles and eels, of course, the Gryphon replied rather impatiently. Any shrimp could have told you that. Ah, if I had been the whiting, said Alice, whose thoughts were still running on the song, I'd have said to the porpoise, keep back, please. We don't want you with us. Ah, they were obliged to have him with them, the Mock Turtle said. No wise fish would go anywhere without a porpoise. Wouldn't it really? Said Alice in a tone of great surprise. Of course not, said the Mock Turtle. Why, if a fish came to me and told me that he was going on a journey, I would say, with what porpoise? Didn't you mean purpose? Said Alice. I mean what I said. The Mock Turtle replied in an offended tone, and the Gryphon added, come, let's hear some of your adventures. I could tell you my adventures beginning from this morning, said Alice a little timidly, but it's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then. Explain all that, said the Mock Turtle. Oh, no, the adventures first, said the Gryphon in an impatient tone. Exclamations take such a dreadful time. So Alice began to tell them her adventures from the time when she first saw the White Rabbit. She was a little nervous about it, just at first. The two creatures got so close to her, one on each side, and opened their eyes so very wide. But she gained courage as she went on. Her listeners were perfectly quiet till she got to the part about her repeating, you were old, Father William, to the caterpillar, and words all coming different, and the Mock Turtle drew a long breath, and he said, that's very curious. It's all about as curious as it can be, said the Gryphon. It all came differently, said the Mock Turtle, repeated thoughtfully. I should like to hear her try and repeat something now. Tell her to begin. He looked at the Gryphon as if he thought it was some sort of authority over Alice. Does anybody have a paper copy? Do you know how many more pages this goes on for?
1, 2, 3,
Two, really.
4, 5.
Oh, okay. Shall we read it quickly?
Sure.
Yes.
I'll turn it over to Anne Doyle.
Okay. Stand up and repeat, is the voice of the sluggard, said the Gryphon. How the creature order one about and make one repeat lessons, thought Alice. Might as well be at school at once. However, she got up and began to repeat it, but her head was so full of the lobster quadrille that she hardly knew what she was saying, and the words came very queer indeed. "'Tis the voice of the lobster," I heard him declare. "You have baked me too brown, I must sugar my hair." As a duck with its eyelids, so he, with his nose, trims his belts and his buttons and turns out his toes. When the sands are all dry, he is gay as a lark, and will talk in contemptuous tones of the shark. But when the tide rises and sharks are around, his voice has a timid and tremulous sound. "That's different from what I used to say when I was a child," said the Gryphon. "Well, I never heard it before," said the Mock Turtle, "but it sounds uncommon nonsense." Alice said nothing. She had sat down with her face in her hands, wondering if anything would ever happen in a natural way again. "I should like to have it explained," said the Mock Turtle. "She can't explain it," hastily said the Gryphon. "Go on with the next verse." "Well, what about his toes?" the Mock Turtle persisted. "How could he turn them out with his nose, you know?" "It's the first position in dancing," Alice said, but was dreadfully puzzled by the whole thing, and longed to change the subject. "Go with the next verse," and the Gryphon repeated. It begins, "I passed by his garden." Alice did not dare to disobey, though she felt sure it would all come round, and she went on in a trembling voice. By Tom.
I passed by his garden and marked with one eye how the owl and the panther were sharing a pie. The panther took pie crust and gravy and meat, while the owl had the dish as its share of the treat. When the pie was all finished, the owl to his boon was kindly permitted to pocket the spoon, while the panther received knife and fork with a growl, and concluded the banquet by, "What is the use of repeating all that stuff?" So the Mock Turtle interrupted. "If you don't explain it as you go on, It's by far the most confusing thing I ever heard. Yes, I think you'd better leave off, said the Gryphon, and Alice was only too glad to do so. Des?
Shall we try another figure of the lobster quadrille? The Gryphon went on. Or would you like the Mock Turtle to sing you another song? Oh, a song, please. If the Mock Turtle would be so kind, Alice replied, so eagerly that the Gryphon said, in a rather offended tone, no accounting for tastes. Sing her turtle soup, will you, old fellow? The Mock Turtle sighed deeply and began in a voice sometimes choked with sobs to sing this. Beautiful soup, so rich and green, waiting in a hot tureen. Who for such dainties should not stoop? Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, who cares for fish, game, or any other dish? Who would not give all else for two? Pennyworth only of beautiful soup. Pennyworth only of beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup, full stop. Chorus again, cried the Gryphon, and the Mock Turtle had just begun to repeat it when a cry of "The trial's beginning" was heard in the distance. Come on, cried the Gryphon, and taking Alice by the hand, it hurried off without waiting for the end of the song. What trial is it? Alice panted as she ran, but the Gryphon only answered, Come on, and ran the faster, while more and more faintly came, carried on the breeze that followed them, the melancholy words, Soup of the evening, beautiful soup.
You know, all these little songs and rhymes are things you don't remember all the words, but you certainly remember them. They stay with you all your life.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm.
All right. Good goofiness.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, next time
Can
we.
I just come back on one thing here? I have here stuff on Carol, and there's a photograph here of a young kid, and the photograph, what's underneath the title is Photograph Showing a Nude Child from the Australasian in 1901. Pictures depicting childhood nudity were considered conventional during the Victorian era.
Hmm.
And that certainly puts a different perspective on it from
Yes.
today's view.
Yeah, well, if you know anything, have you ever heard of W.T. Stead?
No.
W.T. Stead was a newspaper man who, well, I will just say that our current scandal, the Epstein scandal, was a common occurrence during the Victorian time.
Yes.
It was very common, and actually, poor people, in some cases, would sell their daughters' virginity to rich men. And W.T. Stead crusaded against this. And he actually arranged a story about a rich man who bought a poor girl's virginity, and it was actually a staged thing. They didn't consummate it, as they say, but he went and he wrote a newspaper article about this, expecting it to raise a big scandal and to cause um, some reform. Instead, he was put in jail for discussing such things in a publication. And so there's a Finnegan's Wake scholar by the name of Grace Eckley who wrote a book on all this stuff and wrote a biography of W.T. Stead. And she insists that James Joyce was influenced by this book. And I don't see it myself, but she insists that Finnegan's Wake is that's a prominent theme in Finnegan's Wake. Anyway, the point is that the Victorian age was not very Victorian. And there were all sorts of scandalous things that happened. But the crime was you were not allowed to discuss them. So
Yes, if you don't talk about it, it didn't happen.
it's right in that category. If you don't talk about it, it's not really going on. And so yeah, but you're right. The nude photography of young children was a very common event, as was taking pictures of, when a family pet died, you would stuff it and then take photographs of family members holding the little dog or cat. There's some really horrific photos of stuffed dogs and cats. But this was a thing, an important part of the culture, as it were. Anyway, thank you all very much. We should
Thank
all
you.
gather together.
Thanks. Yeah.
See you next
Thanks,
week.
everyone. Yeah.
Okay, be sure to give your cat a couple of extra, strokes for me. And assure the cat that the next time you will bring her favorite chair in.
Yes, I've already promised that.
Okay.
But
Okay, thanks, everybody.
he's
Thanks.
very